Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another episode of the Podcast Strikes Back. My name is George, and you're listening to our first episode of Movie MMA. That's right, two films battling out: Amazing Spider-Man versus Spider-Man 3. This is a first for us, and today joining me to battle it out is Connor.
Hello.
And Benny.
Hello.
Interesting how this whole thing came up.
In a previous podcast, we were talking about superhero films, and I had made the comment how I would rather watch The Amazing Spider-Man rather than watch Spider-Man 3. And to my absolute amazement, you both defended Spider-Man 3 as a better film.
Hell yeah.
Which is just, for me, bizarre. So
then we sat down, went over to Benny's, ate some cheezels, and chucked on both of the films.
Yeah, we watched both films.
With a critical eye.
With a critical eye, exactly.
It's a long couple of days.
It was, because I'll be honest, I didn't really want to watch either of these films. At no point have I ever said that either of these films are good. I've just said which one I think is less shit.
All right, he's already sneaking a little back door there.
Back foot.
I'm just sticking with what I've said the entire time.
We have it recorded. You saying that Amazing Spider-Man is the best Spider-Man film ever made.
No,
We don't have time to go back and play it. We can't find the audio file right now.
no one should go investigating into when that was said or how it was said.
I'm going to go find that.
You can look all day.
Okay, so yeah, a little bit about these films. Spider-Man 3, the third entry into Sam Raimi's
Trilogy.
Trilogy, 2007. I think when it came out, it was kind of considered a bit of a disappointment. 1 and 2 were so magical, so special, and amongst fans and critics, I think. And 3 came out, and there was obviously some production problems with it. We heard, there's a lot of hype about Venom with this film, and he was really just sandwiched in there. So I remember coming out of this film and being quite disappointed when it was released.
People kind of hold it up as the worst thing to ever happen in superhero cinema. The reaction wasn't that bad initially when it came out. The reviews weren't terrible at the time.
Very mixed though, and I think people said it was.
Everyone agreed absolutely that it was a disappointment to some extent, but not an abomination that people kind of consider it now.
Okay, and then the other film that we're looking at is The Amazing Spider-Man 2000.
Sorry, guys.
Sorry, did I say that out loud? Oh my goodness.
2012. So Sam Raimi was actually going to go and do a Spider-Man 4. That was on the cards, and then the whole thing broke down. His relationship with Sony broke down. They decided to reboot the whole franchise, and The Amazing Spider-Man was the first entry into this whole rebooted series.
The untold story.
Yeah, that was the whole thing, the marketing
That's
campaign.
how they marketed it.
Yeah, because it was only 5 years after the previous film. So they were trying to market as, a new version of the origin story.
I think I, like most people, were a bit taken aback. Why, do we really need another origin story?
I think they really tried to position this film as the, real or gritty Spider-Man.
The Batman Begins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that was very in vogue at that stage. The Dark Knight had killed it at the box office and critically.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's get into the rounds.
All right, before we start, just a really quick recap on how we're going to do this. We've established about 5 general criteria on how we're going to rate these films. We're going to put them into about 5 rounds. The 5th round is going to be a bit of a general round on the movie for anything that we weren't able to cover in the first 4. Ultimately, we're pretty solidly in our camps. We've talked about this movie enough that we know that we're not going to convince each other. So we're going to leave it up to you guys. If you feel like giving us a shout on any kind of social media or which film you thought was better, or even why, we always love hearing from you guys. You guys are going to be the one that's going to have to score this. We're definitely not going to be able to.
Connor, I'm going to convince you if it kills me.
I think it might. I think I might. All right, so we're going to go into round 1. So round 1 is which film had the better Peter Parker / Spider-Man. So it's a bit of a two-part round 1.
It's a Toby McGuire versus Andrew Garfield.
Yeah. And I mean, in terms of just straight up Peter Parker, the character, I'm going to give it to Amazing Spider-Man. I thought that, yeah, I mean, obviously. Andrew Garfield, I felt played a far better kind of awkward teenager than, which is what Spider-Man's character is, than Toby McGuire, who just, I mean, I'd like to say he played him as a brooding adult, but I think kind of saying he played anything is giving him too much credit.
I want to jump in and say Spider-Man hasn't been a teenager for decades, Connor.
He's in high school.
No,
in both, like, I mean, he's in high school in this film.
Just to say he's classically a teenager, that was a long time ago.
In his origin story, which this is.
Unfortunately. I remember hearing Garfield was cast as Peter Parker, and I thought that was great news because I really liked him at that point in time.
In The Social Network.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought he was just a great choice for Peter Parker. And then, sit down to watch the film, and he's just this weird, antisocial, blithering, idiot, teenager, angsty, goofy-looking. I don't know what
he's just such a douchebag.
He's
in
a
this film.
douchebag. He's not.
There's nothing that he does that's remotely nice.
Yeah,
he gets beaten up for a kid. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna. I thought I might just pull you up on some bullshit right there.
Yeah, but I think in his general interactions, other than that, he's a douche to Aunt May and Uncle Ben.
Oh boy, is he?
He's a douche to Gwen Stacey.
He's a stalker.
He's just not a nice
and what, sorry,
Peter Parker.
And what? Toby in this is a saint?
He's not. But what's cool about Spider-Man 3 is Toby McGuire's Peter Parker goes through a bit of an arc, and him getting used to being the hero. He's I'm the guy. I'm Spider-Man. There's all these parades happening. And yeah, he's a bit of a douchebag, and he has to kind of look at himself in the mirror and have some self-examination, and he comes around to it at the end of the film. And there's no kind of arc with Andrew Garfield's character. He's just a douchebag the whole film.
Yeah, he's like, by all rights, he should be the coolest kid in school. He's just this good-looking skateboarder kid who goes around listening to Coldplay.
Traditionally, really cool kids in high school do that.
Yeah, it's all right. I just had to name check that scene. Yeah, whereas the Tobey Maguire Peter Parker is so much more true to the character.
We're talking about just the third film. We're not talking about 1 or 2.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And I'll admit I'm biased on this just because I love his portrayal in those first 2 movies.
And I should make it clear, I like those first 2 films as well.
That's not what you've said.
Yeah.
No. But yeah, he's such a nerd and a geek and this good-natured goofball, and that just works.
There's none of that in this third film. In the third Raimi film.
There absolutely is. When he becomes full-on emo, it's like the Peter Parker geek version of emo. He's like this weird jazz pianist dancer, like dancing down the street.
I'm really glad you brought up that scene because
it's great.
That's your defense of this film.
Yeah, because all the women are looking at him like this, just such a creep. Like it's so self-knowing. Whereas in the Garfield one, he actually is just this attractive guy.
I mean, in the Raimi.
It's conscious of what it's doing, though. Like the film knows, like the girls are looking at him like, "What a dad."
Well, half of them aren't, and I noticed that in the scenes, half of them are looking.
The whole joke is what a goof.
We can go back and watch this again if we must. Like I will do it.
We will.
But in that scene, like half the girls are looking at me like, "Oh hell yeah!" And it's such a weird mixture of just. I mean, I did notice that those girls were looking at him like you're an idiot, but half of them weren't, and I'm like, that scene. Just at no point did I feel like that was a good Peter Parker. Like that just didn't seem right. It seemed hammed in there.
Yeah, but that's part of the symbiote. That's part of the symbiote story. So he's acting that way because of the symbiote. So you can't, it's.
I mean, I'm sorry, that's still part of the plot.
But
the symbiote makes him act like a weirdo. I don't even know. Like it's not even
perfect.
Good,
like on someone like Eddie Brock, it makes him into this, psycho badass, powerful guy. When Peter Parker wears it, he's still just a complete nerd. It's great.
I mean, no, it's just it feels weird. I don't like it.
And what was up with Andrew Garfield's being searching for shit on Bing? Investigative scenes. That was just so
Tobey
bad.
Maguire would Google things.
That's a reflection on his character, that he's got on Bing.
It is, man. Anyone who Bings, I do not trust.
He loses this round purely on that.
Purely on using Bing.
No.
That's a hard place to come back from, I'll be honest.
We got to bring the Peter Parker bit to an end, and the final word is that Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker skateboards around listening to Coldplay. That's really it.
Which is I mean, it's not a great scene, but it's far better than fucking Tobey Maguire dancing around with an emo haircut.
I remember when we were watching
and I
this.
will mention this because I think we have to. His scene where he's getting his neighbor to get him cookies or something. That's such a fucking weird,
awesome.
icky scene. Like if you want to talk about someone being a douchebag, well, there it is.
That's the point, though. That's the symbiote. Yeah, no, maybe they're going to reveal in the third film that Andrew Garfield had the symbiote in him the whole time. That would explain why he's such a douchebag.
There isn't a third film, is there? That series is dead, right?
Thankfully.
Okay.
I think Toby McGuire more accurately portrays Peter Parker and his goofiness. And Andrew Garfield is just this douchey
But there really wasn't
skateboarding teenager.
Grim and
there wasn't
gritty.
that much goofiness in the actual Peter Parker character. Like I found
We've just been
so
talking
much-
about the scene where he's walking down the street
There was
dancing.
goofiness in that, like in that little symbiote little scene. But apart from that, he's so fucking bland. There's no wisecrack. Like I don't see him once really crack wise. Even when he's doing the symbiote, he does the stupid dance. But I mean, as a staple of Peter Parker cracking wise,
Spider-Man. Spider-Man
even-
cracks wise, not Peter Parker.
Never as Peter Parker.
No, not really.
Oh, but, all right, then I'll give that. But like, I mean, even just as like an awkward, normal, like as a normal person, I think Garfield has it. Like I felt like there was much more to that character.
A normal person. The guy can barely speak. He just keeps doing that weird mugging thing with his face.
Yeah. And he's like, I can't. I can't.
It was it was a bit much, but I think at least it was something more than the bland ass shit that Toby punched out.
Mate,
Apart from that,
you keep saying bland. I don't know how you can describe anything in Spider-Man 3 as bland. There are a lot of criticisms you can level at
his
it.
face and his acting, I just didn't.
Oh, attack in the face. All right, Spider-Man. Who is the better Spider-Man?
All right. Well,
We're going to give it to Spider-Man 3.
Yeah.
give it a try. By all means, give that one a try. I mean, if we're talking about cracking wise, then that's.
That one scene in Amazing Spider-Man.
I mean, he continually talks and expresses during as Spider-Man.
I was shocked rewatching Amazing Spider-Man, how little Spider-Man there is in the film.
That is true. He doesn't really kind of come into that Spider-Man character in a little bit late, but this is an origin story.
Yeah.
A really
some fucking reason.
bland, beige origin story.
Yeah. And he has that one scene with the carjacker where he's first has his suit, I think, and everyone kind of cites that as like, oh, they've finally got like an accurate portrayal of Spider-Man, cracking wise and jumping around. And that scene's all right. It's fine, but you don't really see that Spider-Man through the rest of the film, I think.
Well, you don't see it at all in the third one.
Yeah, the portrayal of Spider-Man was never the strongest point in the Raimi films. I will say he was never kind of the exact, like Tobey Maguire was never the exact perfect fit for the Spider-Man character as much.
Yeah,
But,
I'm trying to even trying to really remember a scene as him as Spider-Man in the third one. It's only been like last week since I've seen it, and
When he fought New Goblin.
that's the only scene that really kind of comes to mind,
The
and that
last
was such a
scene?
CGI mess.
Okay,
We'll
what
get to. We'll get it
that.
to.
What about the costumes? Raimi has his hands down. That costume is iconic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the basketball.
I mean,
That weird basketball suit he has in Amazing Spider-Man. It's emblematic of the entire film. They're trying to just do things differently for different sake. Like they take every aspect of the design of that costume. Great design, such an iconic design, the Spider-Man costume, and they just tweak it in little ways to make it different. It's the same thing they do with the entire film, the story, the origin.
Look, I'll be honest. In terms of the way that the Spider-Man looked, as far as the costume design goes, I'd probably give it to the third Raimi film.
Raimi wins. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
We'll see you next time.
I mean, there's just some things that you can't argue. I mean, the costume is better on that.
Yeah, damn straight.
But as far as
No, that's the final
watching
word on
him
Spider-Man.
while he's in that costume and what happens as he is Spider-Man, I mean, I've got to give it. I mean, even the fact the web shooters, you have to give that to the Garfield, the
I
Amazing
like the
Spider-Man.
organic web shooters.
Yeah, same.
It's
I think
such
that's
a weird, like
great.
it feels icky to me. I always
Well,
liked.
he can grow hairs on his fingers that allows him to climb up walls, and him shooting webs is.
Yeah,
out of
I
this
don't know,
world.
because
No.
one of the things I liked
It's
about
fine.
the original property was that he had invented that.
No,
I thought that
I
was
hate
cool.
that. That's so
It shows that
inelegant as far as storytelling goes. I love that he gets bit by a spider in the Raimi movies and he becomes a Spider-Man. Like that's great. Like why is he called Spider-Man? He doesn't have any spider powers in the
he
comic.
can walk on walls.
Yes,
He
like an
has
ant.
Spidey
He should be
sense.
Ant-Man.
He has Spidey sense. Ant-Man can't walk on walls.
Insect.
Exactly.
boy.
So why is he Ant-Man?
Yeah, look, for me, that was a really cool blending of the fact that he's a genius and also has some of
That
the
he stole it
powers
from
of-
Oscorp?
The actual webbing, yeah. I mean,
That was
at what
lame.
point do you just say like how much time do we have?
That's why
That
you
was a
do
little- yeah,
organic.
look,
that's
I
why
was-
you do organic. That's why Raimi did organic, because it's such a quick fix to that problem. That's why, again, this movie
Quick
just does
and
little
lazy.
little tweaks.
Quick
and
and
lazy.
lazy.
Not
Fuck
lazy.
off.
No, lazy is changing it just because for change's sake, which is what this
Which
movie
is
does
that
at every
Raimi
turn.
changed it. The original property is he invented the,
Yeah, but it
the
wasn't-
web shooters.
it wasn't-
So Raimi was just like, well, let's just fucking change it because
No,
it's
no.
easier to do this.
No, it was better for the story. Because there's no time. As we see in
I-
Amazing
I-
Spider-Man, there's no time to accurately show how he invents web shooters.
I think you lose something if you don't have at least some aspect of his, I guess, I won't, it sounds douchey, but like technical genius
no,
in
you,
that
you just
process.
said. You just
I just said it, yeah.
yeah, you just said it's like, oh yeah, there's no time to show that he can make the web shooters, and they didn't. He just stole the webs from Oscorp.
But
he
he
had
still
them
invented the
45
shooters.
seconds later.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
still invented the shooters, which I mean, it's better than just organic.
I don't think so.
No, organic's awesome.
All right, well, I disagree.
Listen, I think just as my final thoughts, I think Tobey Maguire is a much more likable, more relatable Peter Parker and Spider-Man, and he's the clear winner.
Yeah. Look, for me, it's maybe over the entire trilogy that might be true. But as far as that third film, in no way is he a likable Peter. He's a complete douche to MJ the entire time.
He has an arc, and he can't like
At the
he
very
is a douche,
end?
and then he comes around to it at the end, and he changes.
So look at
and
that
that's also
arc.
interesting. Andrew Garfield shows no change. He's flat. He's boring. He's
Let's look
bland.
at your arc for Tobey Maguire. The entire time he's an absolute douche to MJ, and the only thing that kind of starts to make him think twice about it is when he smacks her in the face. How is that not the most douchey thing possible?
That's the point.
Yeah, they take him to this level, so when he comes back.
So all right, fine,
the
but
arc
don't
is
try and
there.
tell me that he's likable in this because he's not.
I think at the beginning he's likable, in the middle he's a douche, and then at the end it comes around and you're
At what
like,
point in
I'm
the
back on board with this guy and I like him.
At what point in the beginning is he likable? He's a self-conceited or he's a self-absorbed asshole. He's like he constantly talks about himself and how good I am as Spider-Man and all this kind of shit. At no point do I feel that he's really. I mean, when he's not being kind of bland and meek, he's being an asshole.
You keep bringing up more evidence for the arc he has in the film, which is the entire.
But I don't think there is like
point
at
of
the
it.
end. It just goes from him being this asshole to having some. I don't understand where he ends up.
Connor doesn't understand. That's round one done.
No. We will have none of that. He doesn't end up like he just ends up
But he
going
has to
being
forgive.
a bad guy
he has
to
to
a good.
forgive the Sandman who kills.
That's or we can get into that when we talk about villains, but that for me that was such a weak point of this film. That's such nonsense.
There's something about relationships in this and in number 3, and I really like that and I connected with it.
Ugh, yuck. All right, let's just move on to villains because that's the next round. So
we got New Goblin, Sandman, and Venom versus the Lizard.
versus the Lizard. Yeah.
Lizard is the worst villain ever done on screen in any film.
Okay, I'm gonna hold you to that. I'm gonna hold
as
you to that.
well as from a character standpoint to the way it looks.
Mm-hmm.
Terrible on every level. Just no engagement, no threat. It looks like, what were they thinking with that creature design?
How do you fuck up the lizard? It is so simple. He's just a dinosaur with a lab coat. They gave him this weird flat monkey face.
I was really disappointed when he took off the lab coat. I was like, just keep the lab coat on, man.
Just leave the lab coat on. That's all. That's
Yeah.
the only defining feature he has visually, really.
How menacing are the velociraptors in Jurassic Park? Like, you take that snouty dinosaur look, whack it on him.
Yeah. Look, for me, I feel like where they wanted to touch on the character with, kind of the lost arm and the kind of descent into madness. It was a bit of a ripoff of the first Goblin in
yeah,
the
totally.
first
They were just
Spider-Man.
retreading that, except not doing it well.
I think there were some interesting ideas there, though.
yeah.
But they didn't use them in
At
any way,
all.
shape, or form.
I won't try and tell anyone that they nailed that. To say, but I liked the direction that they were going for. In terms of the creature design, it wasn't the worst thing in the world.
Terrible.
Let's
It's
stop
terrible.
being like so.
It is so bad.
melodramatic.
I'd laugh just thinking about that goofy look on his face.
Yeah. The design was not spectacular.
And why did they go with the lizard? They're doing this grim and gritty Batman Begins reboot of Spider-Man, and they go for this hilariously comic booky. Like that would have been so cool in a Raimi movie with his horror sensibility. This Jekyll and Hyde character would have been wicked.
Yeah. I can't really defend the Amazing Spider-Man villain too much.
At all.
What I very much can do is say how the villains in Spider-Man 3 were so much worse.
No way.
No.
Oh, all right. First of all, Sandman. That was such a nothing character. And then in order to make up for it being such a nothing character, they tried to give this weird hammed subplot of he's actually the one that killed Uncle Ben.
I love that.
Oh, come on. That's such it's, for me, not only does it not make sense, but we get this sense of resolution at the end that is not, totally undeserved. I mean, his excuse for killing Uncle Ben was, I needed money. That's crime. That's not like in
daughter's dying,
that case,
man.
I'll let you go. Fuck off. That's such a pathetic excuse for him doing what he did. And this whole thing about he forgives him. I mean, this is such a cop out.
What I love about I know we're talking about Spider-Man 3 exclusively here, but what I love about the Raimi trilogy is these threads that it weaves through all of the films, and these characters reoccur, and that I love how it builds upon that scene from the first one and adds to it.
So sorry, what scene are you referring to?
Uncle Ben dying. Like you see that. I think you see that in every film.
It's very much a motivation for him.
Yeah. Like it's an integral part of the story, and I really, really love that. And same again, his relationship with Harry Osborn as New Goblin in this. Like there's an arc there, and it continues through. And I love that. And these villains, I really think Venom is the weakest one. I don't. Yeah. I think Sandman.
But he's the only real villain. That's one of the main issues.
New Goblin's a villain. There's a big stuff that happens with New
until
Goblin
about halfway through.
Yeah. I love New Goblin in this.
Yeah. Can we just make a quick note about New Goblin? His butler has apparently been sitting on the fact that he's on this crazed, tyrannical path, and the entire time knows that it's the wrong path.
That's a good supportive butler.
It's only
you want to be a supervillain, you go supervillain.
After he's burnt off half his fucking face, that the butler goes, "Oh, by the way, this whole big vendetta that's been ruining your life for the last X amount of years, it's not true." What?
Oh, Jesus Christ!
How fucking shitty is that?
Yeah. Okay. I'll give you that.
That's. I mean,
it hasn't been years.
So much of these villains just feel stuffed in here, and they try to give them relevance.
I don't think so.
Sandman, that whole Uncle Ben thing, just it reeks of trying to give this character some gravitas. Because I mean, the whole kid thing just fell flat for me. The whole motivation, the whole, just the character in general.
Listen, it's definitely not like executed to a T. It's not the best execution of that character and what it could be, but I like the idea, and I like the way he tried to weave it in, and I like the look of it. I think that opening sequence where the birth of Sandman,
really cool
it's
scene.
Ridiculous, like this thing existing in the middle of nowhere.
It's great. It's beautiful comic book stuff.
Yeah, but the actual awakening of Sandman is such an amazing sequence. And this, maybe the CG doesn't look great, but the difference between these two filmmakers is that you can see the difference between these two filmmakers, Mark Webb and Sam Raimi, in that film, because even though he may not nail it on a CG photorealistic level, there's a level of art and finesse and the way he sculpts the scene.
Zack Snyder has a really good sculpting of scenes. It doesn't make him a good filmmaker.
Yeah, it makes him a good filmmaker in terms of like
it makes him level, a filmmaker though.
A technical
which
level.
There clearly wasn't one involved in Amazing Spider-Man. That was a film directed by Sony.
I mean, I won't try and extol the virtues of that directorial choice.
Well, you just kind of keep having to say, I was like, I won't defend this film on this level or this level or this level.
I've defended Andrew Garfield in the previous round. I just, in terms of in terms of the villain. I'm not going to try and tell you that was the strongest part of Amazing Spider-Man.
I gotta say, I really like.
But at least there was a villain in Amazing Spider-Man.
What are you talking about? There's loads of villains in this other one.
Oh, name a villain again.
New Goblin.
New Goblin
Sandman.
turns out to be a friend.
Yeah, because there's an arc in this, but up until the last 5 minutes of the
and
film,
a shitty
he's a
arc
villain.
at that, because the butler
it's a
decides,
good arc.
however long too late, that it's time to tell them that he's gone on this weird tyrannical thing for no reason.
There's such an interesting like love triangle dynamic between Peter, Harry, and Mary Jane in Spider-Man 3.
In the loosest sense possible.
No, like what about that scene in the coffee shop where Peter Parker comes and visits him?
Possibly one of the worst scenes of this film.
No, a great
That
scene.
weird
and he turns
wink.
Yeah.
It's so good. I
He's
love
taking
how
over.
fun.
He's taking over. Like
James Franco playing a villain is fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
I don't understand how no one could not love this. Like, he's such an idiot. He's so high all the time. He looks like his new Goblin. Like,
Look, all right.
he came out of that green, smoky room.
yeah. He's like, it's so good. How could you not love him? And
Look, all right,
in that first action scene with him and Spidey when he smacks his head,
And how he's
against that
being
pipe.
motivated by, like, Willem Dafoe reprises his role in this film, and you see that sequence again.
Yeah, and with Spidey and him fighting, it's really goofy in a weird way that just feels like two friends fighting, like having this beef.
Blew
that,
him up.
Yeah, and that's such a good scene as well. When he
so
throws that pumpkin
scene was
bomb and he
cool,
whips
but then
it right
what?
back at his head.
He just shows up in the next scene with a slightly burnt face. That's it.
Yeah,
He just got exploded by 6 bombs that, and in a previous film, you saw take out an
He's
entire fucking
He's a
Goblin.
superhuman,
veranda.
you dickhead.
He's a
Sorry?
goblin.
He's a superhuman. He is a
So he can
serum
survive,
man.
what, like 10 of those? Is he just immortal then? His father gets taken out by a fucking blade, and he survives, what, 6 bombs? 10 bombs? An entire shelf full of bombs? Sorry, don't give me this, like, he's immortal bullshit.
I'm not saying he's immortal. He was just able to survive the blast.
Weathering the storm, Connor. Weathering the storm.
Jesus, don't start trying to pick on logic in these movies.
Reality.
You're going to hurt
I will
yourself.
give you that. That's probably a bit of a stretch.
You're going to pull a
But
muscle.
in terms of, like, look, I didn't feel like there was any strong villain in Spider-Man 3. Like, they just crammed
Peter was
3
the
villains
villain.
in there.
Peter was the villain to himself. That's the whole point of this movie.
He would have been if it wasn't so goofy and ham-fisted in there. Yeah.
I think it's a testament to Eddie Brock in this film, Topher Grace, because Venom is so clearly shoehorned into this movie, and everyone always cites that as the biggest weakness of it. But no one ever really criticizes Topher Grace. I think he's really good as Eddie Brock throughout the film. I think he's a really good foil for Peter.
I love how Sam Raimi kind of makes it so blatantly obvious that he doesn't want to put Venom in by
Forgetting it for half the film.
No, because the first time the symbiote comes down, they're Peter Parker and Mary Jane are sitting on that web, gazing at the stars, and this symbiote comes down, and it's like so blatantly obvious.
It literally just flies in from space.
Yeah.
So your
into the
defense of
movie.
this film is the director was obviously pissed off enough that he just hammed that character in. Like, how's that a defense for this being a good film?
You're loving the word ham today.
I am. I don't know why.
Ham. Delicious ham.
ham.
He's actually got a big ham in front of him right now that he keeps eating in between takes.
Give me the ham sandwich.
But that's the word that comes to mind when I think of this film. Like, it's just not.
At no stage have I said that Spider-Man 3 is my favorite film. And I've said
now he's looking
Sandman's
for a back door.
Sandman is, it's not that well executed, but it's better on every level than Lizard.
He doesn't. No.
Across the 3 villains,
As far as motivation goes, like there's such a weird
What was the lizard's motivation?
for
Connor?
science sake.
I'm sorry, what was his motivation?
For science sake.
No, he's just another one of these bullshit characters who like does some random thing and then goes crazy and then is just evil.
You could say the same thing about the first Goblin, but you've already extolled the virtues of the first Goblin.
His company was getting stolen out from under him, so he wanted to kill the people who were doing it.
I've just given you, like, he's a scientist. He's trying to grow back his arm. He's going for the evolution of man. I can give you the plot points, but you have to
Yeah, please
you
do,
have to
'cause
draw
they're
a line.
hilarious.
Like, you have to draw a line. Either
It's gotta turn everyone into lizards
I can
for
say
half
the
a
same
scene.
thing about this character that I can say about the first Goblin.
We're not talking about the first Goblin.
Goblin was executed better. I'm just saying that you've already referenced it as a good character and a good execution of that kind of plot point. They have the same kind of motivations. So it's just in execution. So it's not about motivation.
I just explained what the Goblin's motivations were.
what his company
was getting stolen out from under him, so he killed the people who were doing it.
Yeah, and I've just explained the motivations of the lizard.
No, you didn't. I see
Yes,
that
I
cheeky
did.
smile on your face.
Yes, I did. He's lost an arm. He's trying to grow it back. He's trying to push humanity over into a new
Because he doesn't
level
have
of
an arm.
evolution.
Because he doesn't have an arm. And
It's-
Not
I
a
mean, it's
motivation.
alright.
That's ridiculous.
an arm.
It's very close to being a good examination of science for science sake. And I can see where the potential is in it.
It's about maybe
But I think
5% of
it's
the way there.
I think it's
Yeah.
closer to its potential than the Sandman was to its for
No. Definitely not.
for the fucking goblins. I mean, it's just ugh. At no point was I convinced by any of the characters in Spider-Man 3. None of them seemed like Topher Grace's character played a really good asshole, but as soon as he became Venom, it's just such a
He's only Venom for 2 minutes, doesn't
yeah.
matter.
Well, exactly. It's
Um,
like not a
No, I just don't think there's any argument here. All three of the villains in Spider-Man 3 shoehorned in, crappily CGI, whatever, it doesn't matter. They're all more compelling and entertaining, intentionally or otherwise, than the lizard, who is just so bland and boringly designed and just not interesting in any way whatsoever.
Done.
Done.
That's
round
the
3.
punchline.
if that's your bar for interesting, then we have to have a serious sit down, Ben.
But no, you just said Eddie Brock played a good arsehole. He was funny. He had some good laughs in
I mean,
there.
as a counter to Toby, then yeah, for that particular part, but that's not him as Venom. That's just him as Eddie Brock.
But Eddie Brock is more a bad guy in the film than Venom is.
Exactly.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
You've now entered like a fourth villain into this.
Well, your math's a little fuzzy on that one. I think they're the same guy. He's
Well, I mean,
James Franco's character counts for 2. Harry Osborn.
but at
and
no
Hugh
point does
Goblin.
he like he kind of that happens early on in the film. Venom as a character.
Listen,
appears
I don't
later.
think anyone. I don't think me or Ben will defend Venom. I don't think either of us think that's he's that great. But compared to Lizard, man, Venom is high ranking.
I'm not defending any of them really. I just think they're much more interesting and entertaining. That's all you need.
When I just want to clarify something. When you say interesting,
yeah.
like things can be bad, and because they're bad, they're interesting.
Yeah. Exactly. And
But that
a lot of
doesn't make
things
them- like, that doesn't
things
make
in
them better villains. Like, I mean, just I watch bad films because they're bad, and because like I'd rather not even just rather, but I can get enjoyment out of a bad film because it's just bad. But that doesn't make it a.
I feel like the
good
most
film.
basic criteria here is if these characters are more interesting and entertaining and enjoyable, that's better. Like what does the lizard have over any of those
Okay, well,
criteria?
in that case, then I didn't find any of those villains in Spider-Man 3 entertaining or interesting.
Yes, you did. You were laughing your head off at certain points in that
I was
movie.
laughing because it was like mostly with James Franco's.
Dopey
being
ass
bad.
dude Goblin. Yeah, it's hilarious. It's great.
But no, like you keep saying like bad isn't great. Like that's not good filmmaking. That's someone trying something, failing, and we're laughing at him failing. Like that doesn't make it a good film.
I was laughing with the movie more than I was at it, but even laughing at it, that just makes it more interesting.
I was laughing at it far more than I was laughing with it. This is getting down a
Yeah.
weird road of semantics.
That's the point. I was there. You definitely enjoyed this movie more than the Amazing Spider-Man.
Sorry. No.
You did.
No.
You
Yeah.
Don't,
were
don't try
laughing
and
more.
push that shit. Yeah,
Yeah.
because it was bad.
Yeah.
Not
And-
because it was more interesting, and not because it was better.
You
because
were
it
just
was bad.
sad and
'Cause it was
quiet
bad.
and bored.
You're
in
on your phone the
Amazing
entire
Spider-Man.
time for Amazing Spider-Man.
I was on my phone for the same amount of time that I
No,
was on.
not at all. I was
Yes, what are you talking about?
I was absolutely watching that.
Buddy creep.
Round 3.
No. All right. Round 3. This is all fabricated, by the way. Round 3, love interests. I'll let you guys go first. You go ahead and defend MJ.
I don't think there's any point even trying to put up a fight for this one.
This is gonna be the shortest round ever.
Yeah, no,
fair
well,
enough.
yeah. Emma Stone was quite good in the role. I don't have anything bad to say about her. I like Kirsten Dunst in those movies. She didn't have much to do in this third one except be sad, which was sad. I find the kind of Peter MJ love story to be very affecting, probably mostly because the first two movies have endeared me so much to it. And I love that last scene when they come back together at the end. No dialogue or anything. He just walks in and they embrace. It's so beautiful. And I think it's such a beautiful end to the franchise, even if the third movie's not, kind of a sour, it's kind of a sour note. But
I found the relationship between them very just unconvincing. Like it's just
Really?
for me.
There's
yeah,
two films of setup, man.
Yeah, but I mean that's that's considering those two films. In this, I really didn't get any chemistry between them. That third film did not, that last scene of the third film did not really capture anything for me. I found, because I found his character so, at no point did I like his character. And I didn't enjoy and I will admit there's I guess a bit of an arc in it, but at no point do I think it's a good arc or a convincing one. That whole thing, him coming back to MJ, just at no point did that feel good to me or interesting.
I did. I think what I love, one of the big takeaways from Spider-Man 3 from this viewing was how much of a romantic film it is. Like
the whole franchise, the whole series.
But I think there's a lot of stuff about marriage in Spider-Man 3, like his scene with Aunt May, where she talks about getting proposed to by Uncle Ben, and taking that next step in life. And it's funny, actually. Something I wanted to quickly talk about was how life experiences can make you look at a movie in a different way. And I recently got engaged, and like thinking about gearing up to propose, it's a big thing. And when you go through these different stages of life, like you look at a movie when you're a kid differently to when you're an adult, and that's one thing I really took away from Spider-Man 3 was such a romantic film, commenting on love, commenting on friendship and long-term relationships, and I really loved that about it.
I do like Gwen Stacy's character in Amazing Spider-Man. As far as the relationship goes, I don't dig it much at all.
I would have liked
just because I find Peter Parker in that film to be so insufferable and kind of a creepy stalker. Them together, I don't like.
I would have liked to see Andrew Garfield, I think, fight for a little bit more. I guess the relationship almost seemed a little bit too easy, but as a character, I really liked Gwen Stacy.
I think she's more nuanced than Mary Jane. Kirsten Dunst's character is. I think Mary Jane, that character is very down and out, and it's part of the story, but it gets a little exhausting in the narrative. And Gwen Stacy, she's just a little more dynamic and way more so than Peter Parker is.
Yeah,
Peter Parker's just like tricking along the bottom feeder, and
then he kills her in the second one.
Yeah, so you're not going to use that against him.
Great character.
Oh no, that's enough for this round, I think.
Yeah. So the next one was kind of action scenes and CGI and general effects. Again, you mentioned it before, that fight scene between Goblin and Spider-Man in the third Raimi film.
Yeah,
I think Raimi was really ambitious with what he wanted to do in that third film.
I love that scene.
He's a filmmaker.
You look, I don't have anything against Raimi. And I don't have anything against his general style. I think that he was overambitious with this one in terms of what he could actually accomplish with CGI and accomplish successfully. So that scene is a chaotic mess that I'm okay with. But because the CGI wasn't there, it doesn't hold up.
I love the filmmaking aspect of it. I love the craft of it. I love just the amount of effort put in and the way he tries to push the boundaries. In no shape or form does the Amazing Spider-Man trying to push the envelope at all.
There's not a memorable action scene in that movie.
It tried to do that mirror's edge thing where the first person perspective, and they didn't even have the balls to put that in because the fan reaction was so bad on the trailer. Yeah. Such a weak film, and that's reflective of the whole thing. It's just beige, it's bland, doesn't dare to do anything out of the box. And
but I would rather have a film that
doesn't try to do anything.
Actually,
it doesn't shoot for the stars.
But shooting for the stars is great as long as you actually, get somewhere that's reasonable.
As
but
if it's not
Raimi
coherent.
was too ambitious.
What's wrong with the scene?
Far too ambitious.
The green screen isn't that great. Okay, what else?
The CGI isn't there. And it's not just that scene. It's so many scenes in that have such bad CGI.
I don't think so.
I completely disagree.
No. You said that on the night watching it. You were saying that this does not hold up as far as CGI. You didn't.
That scene?
Well, that scene and others. Because we had that conversation.
But I would say it's better than The Amazing Spider-Man.
As far as execution of what it set out to do, no.
I don't think the CGI looks any better in Amazing Spider-Man than in Spider-Man 3.
Wait, sorry, what?
The movie's...
The lizard? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is... All right, I'm sorry, but that's straight up denial. If you're trying to tell me that Spider-Man 3 has on par effects with Amazing Spider-Man. I'm sorry, that's just like, I can't argue that.
I think if you think about visual effects as a storytelling mechanism, that scene between New Goblin and Spider-Man, it propels the plot forward. It has purpose.
So you keep saying Raimi is a filmmaker, and it really comes across in these movies. Like the staging and the way he puts these scenes together. He uses all these amazing kind of old school film techniques and shots and angles, and I just think it's so much more interestingly put together than Amazing Spider-Man, which I can't remember like a single shot or fight or anything in it.
Yeah, I mean, you're always going to remember a train wreck. And look, and again,
but on a technical level, it is not a train wreck. There's nothing that bad in it. There's maybe a couple bits of overambitious CGI, but Amazing Spider-Man has crap like that in it too.
But just not to that level. I mean, like they knew what they were capable of doing in Amazing Spider-Man, and they played to those strengths.
They didn't know how to do the lizard.
The lizard is not that bad. I mean, the design of the lizard,
so bad.
Design of the lizard, you may be able to.
That's all there is to him.
Say it? But no, it's just the actual execution of that
character.
CGI character.
Just his face pulls you out.
If we're talking right now about action scenes and effects in general, then we're talking about it's the execution of that design. And as far as the execution of the design and the video effects go, that's, I mean, Amazing Spider-Man has it in the bag easily.
I don't know. I think there's more purpose and character motivation behind the scenes, the action scenes in Spider-Man 3. Like what action scenes are in the Amazing Spider-Man? I can't even remember. That's how unmemorable they are. There's
there aren't an awful lot.
There's the school. What else? Where he's like beating people up in alleyways. Okay. Wow. That's original. There's a bit where he's swinging around in that cargo warehouse by the waterfront.
They chucked a lot of parkour in there as well.
Cool. Okay, so he's swinging on chains. Great. Really pushing the envelope there.
There's the.
I'm sorry. Like,
wait. When
I said that Sam Raimi was being ambitious, he's not doing anything new or.
Of course he was.
That adventurous.
Who has done that kind of like aerial combat scene before?
He had in the previous films and pulled it off.
Raimi's web-slinging scenes have not been surpassed at all in all three movies. They're amazing.
No, but going back to Amazing Spider-Man, what's the other action scene? Come on.
Hold on. Amazing Spider-Man.
The final action scene, the scene where
he swings along the cranes?
No,
we have to talk about that scene. We have to talk about that scene.
I never said the cranes.
Great.
Don't put words in my mouth.
We're talking about the cranes now, though. That is.
I mean, I don't want to talk about the cranes.
Where he's fighting the thing on the roof.
Yeah.
What was that? He was fighting.
Sorry, all right. You're going to try and tell me that him fighting Venom was better?
He was fighting a monster on a roof. Yeah, it was in a construction yard. It was interesting. It integrated the
because it was in a
Sandman
construction yard.
organically.
It's
The
somehow
giant hand. Interesting.
Fuck off.
Interesting visual.
That design for the final Sandman is such a laughable piece of shit. No. As far as CGI and design, please. Sorry, that is such utter nonsense.
The final scene, it's going to take place on a roof, and Peter Parker is going to fight the lizard.
They're on a roof in Spider-Man 3 as well.
Cool.
No.
Don't give me that shit. They were on a roof there as well.
They're not. They're in a construction site. Yeah. No. Wait, Connor, you've got a good point here. Amazing Spider-Man does have a really cool original climax where they're on the top of a skyscraper at night with a big device pointing up in the sky and a big blue light. That's really. I've never seen that in a blockbuster before. Except for about 15 movies that year and the year after.
Sorry, you keep trying to tell me that it's not great because it's again. I'm not trying to say that Amazing Spider-Man was trying to
I'm not going to defend this film.
Well, no,
that's your job, mate.
At no point have I said that it's a great film, but I'm saying don't try and pin the third Raimi film because it's not anything wildly. It's just. You keep saying that it's shit because it was really ambitious.
It's ambition. There's ambition and there's...
All right, when I said there's an ambition, there's a bit of ambition. But let's not try and say that this was the most ambitious or the most original movie of the last decade or some shit like that.
But compared to...
What are you fucking talking about? We're not saying that.
Sorry, if you can put words in my mouth, I can definitely put ones in yours.
I'll put something in your mouth.
I knew you were going to say that. You son of a bitch.
Compared to The Amazing Spider-Man, which is, I think on the whole, my argument with it is how bland and underwhelming it is on every level. and how meandering it is and has no plot trajectory.
It's boring. It is so boring.
Spider-Man 3, it shoots for the stars, and maybe it doesn't get there, but at least
Spider-Man
it tried.
3 is
and it's
not boring.
fun, and it's fun to see how
I can give you
it all goes
100
down.
films that aren't done by Sam Raimi and that aren't like Spider-Man property that shoot for the stars and are shit that you
Okay,
don't
number
give a shit
one.
about.
You can give us 100 films. Number one.
Fuck off. Don't. All right, there are 100 films out there then that have that criteria.
We're talking
You
about
smug son of a bitch.
We're talking about Spider-Man 3 versus The Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and you're trying to tell me that it's so great because it's really ambitious.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean jack shit if it doesn't execute.
Hold on, guys. We skipped over the worst scene in any Spider-Man film ever, which is the crane scene, which you very quickly wanted to pass through.
I remember we were watching this
not a great scene.
and you were just like, you kind of swallowed. You went,
I have to go to the toilet now. I have to be somewhere else other than here.
It's like all the fucking New York construction workers coming out. It's like, hey boys, we gotta save Spidey.
In somewhere that's not New York.
It wasn't shot in New York
Wasn't
at
shot
all.
in New York,
and
yeah.
it's God, it shows. Fuck.
No, I think
New
there
York
was
is
some-
such an essential character.
I think there were some shots.
Thanks,
Were there?
thanks, George. Thanks for undercutting my argument there.
Well,
That's
I
real
just want to
helpful.
make sure we're accurate on these points.
Yeah, look, it was not a good scene. It was not a good scene.
It is the nadir
And
of
even
the
like
Spider-Man franchise.
all right, the
You
thing with
lose this round purely on that scene.
I definitely do not. Yeah, I'm sorry, you're not going to like scrape by the shoddy CGI in Spider-Man 3 by just referencing one scene in Amazing Spider-Man.
5 years. Okay, we also got to factor into this. There's 5 years in terms of Avatar hadn't come out. Like all these films hadn't come out, which had totally changed the game.
Yeah, but your version,
and
we're
they're
talking
still
about it
on
now.
the same level.
We're talking about it
They're
now. It's
still
not on the same level. It's not even
level.
close.
And
I'm
actually,
sorry, like
you know what?
this is
Actually,
my
I
thing.
think they're not on the same
Don't
level.
you dare
Spider-Man
say
3
it.
is
Don't-
better
don't-
looking
fuck you.
than.
Fuck you.
I said
I
that
can't argue
earlier.
this. I can't argue. If
the
you're
film
gonna
as
try
a
and tell
whole
me,
is definitely better looking.
if you're going to try and tell me that there are better visual effects in Spider-Man 3, there's nothing that I can say that's going to convince you otherwise, because that's just pure delusion.
There's better action scenes. That's easy to say.
I mean, they attempted better action scenes, but again, like
No, they just
the,
are
the
better.
bad
They're better
CGI
staged.
and the kind of the over ambition of it takes me out of it. Like it just wasn't good.
It's not bad
But-
CGI though. It was like
It is.
no, it's not.
And
It's
that, and
not
that
bad.
final, let's call it action scene, again, like it's just that Sandman character is so bad that it just doesn't do anything for me. I'd much rather watch, maybe not past the crane scene, in Amazing Spider-Man than I would have to sit through that fucking awful last 20 minutes of Spider-Man 3 or last
Really?
10
What
minutes.
even happens anyway? That's enough shouting at each other for that round, I'm sure.
That's been the entire episode, really.
Shut up.
Round 5.
Round 5, overall film.
Ah,
Just in case we missed anything in the last 4 rounds.
that old chestnut.
Any kind of grievances that you
I'll
have.
take the lead on this one. Spider-Man 3 is kind of rightly touted as a mess because it is in a lot of ways. I enjoy it quite a lot personally, but a lot of people have a lot of problems with it. It's very jarring. It feels like 2 films crammed together in a lot of ways. There's the studio's Venom film, and there's Sam Raimi's Sandman film, kind of bringing back that arc from the Uncle Ben stuff from the first one. I think there is so much in it that is so well executed, just on the same level as the first 2. Raimi is, again, a filmmaker and such an interesting filmmaker with his kind of horror movie background. And it's just, it is, if it fails interestingly. It's never boring. Amazing Spider-Man is so dull and so boring visually and in every other way. God, having to watch it again killed me.
I think you're 100% right. I agree with everything you're saying. It's definitely a weaker entry into Raimi's franchise. It doesn't hit the heights of 1 or 2, but it is interesting. It's got finesse. It's got endearing characters, great performances.
J. Jonah Jameson, shit. This wins the entire argument, man.
Yeah, there we go. We forgot about him. Genuine laugh out loud scenes, moments of personality that really comes through this film, which The Amazing Spider-Man is lacking on every level. It just doesn't have
a soul, man.
It just doesn't have that creative thrust to it that it really needs. You really need in a film.
Yeah, look, for me, the third Raimi film really was characterized as a mess for me. I saw a lot of potential in that film for a lot of cool things to have happen, and I would have to be honest, I would have really loved to have seen Raimi make the film that he wanted to make, because I think there's every possibility that would have been a good film.
That could have been an amazing trilogy.
It could have been an amazing trilogy.
It could have been an amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah, if the last two were anything to go by, if he had stuck to one villain, if he had stuck to one kind of plot and conflict, I think that could have been really great. But as it stands, that movie is such a jumbled mess of things that have been just stuffed into this by Raimi, by the studio, by God knows what. That you come out of it with just no clear, concise idea of what that film even wanted to be. With The Amazing Spider-Man, like I said, for me, this is really just which one is less shit. And I've maintained that from the beginning. Like, I if I can avoid it, I would rather just watch neither of these films ever again.
See, I'll watch Spider-Man 3 again.
Yeah, of course you will, because you're delusional. But for me, The Amazing Spider-Man wasn't nearly as ambitious, but at least it executed for the most part, what it tried to do.
A really bland film.
I mean, it's
The Untold Story.
Blander than I would have wanted from that film.
I think that film is summed up in the last 10 minutes of it, where it just goes on and on. I'm upset I haven't brought it up until now.
The ending.
The ending,
yeah.
Man. At least, for all it's worth, Spider-Man 3, ending happens, boom, boom, 2 scenes, it's over. Whoa, Amazing Spider-Man goes on forever and ever and ever.
Yeah, just really fizzles out. You had one foot out the door, Connor, I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan of that ending. There's a lot of things I'm not a fan of that movie, but I think it's absolutely delusional to try and defend Spider-Man 3 as a even half decent film, because it's not. I mean,
it doesn't have to be, though. It's such an interesting film in so many ways. It's such an interesting case.
It's an interesting case in what happens when a studio really fucks with the director's vision. And
but at least there was a director's vision involved.
And
poor Mark Webb, man, he just had his name on it. I don't know. He probably wasn't even on set for that thing.
Look, it's interesting in the sense of it being a jumbled mess, but I don't think that makes it a good film. And I think that that's a way that people use to justify it still being a good film, because I think it's in that trilogy. It's number one, it's a property that people love, and I think there's just so much about it that people want it to be a good film, and I think that people will try and find any way to justify it being an interesting film. But if it wasn't Spider-Man, people would have forgotten about this movie ages ago. Try and tell me that that's wrong. If this wasn't Spider-Man and a property that you loved, this is something that you would still actually enjoy.
You know what? I'll go one ahead of that and say that people are going to remember Spider-Man 3 way longer than The Amazing Spider-Man. Nobody remembers that.
People remember The Room, but that doesn't make it a good film.
The Room.
The Room is amazing, though. The Room.
But answer my question.
The Amazing Spider-Man is so forgettable. People don't even remember it now. Like there's another reboot happening. Another reboot in like a 15-year span.
Yeah,
and people remember Toby McGuire. People remember Tom Holland.
People remember disasters.
It didn't even make enough to justify a third film. Yeah. That shows how poor.
But like I said,
Peter
people remember disasters. So yeah, it's entirely possible that people will remember that film. Congratulations. I wouldn't want to remember that film.
Your ability to try and defend it, but it's just not going to work.
He hasn't tried to defend it.
I haven't really tried to defend it. I've just tried to say that it's better than that pile that you keep trying to polish.
I got to give the final word here. I think it should go to Sally Field, who played Aunt May in the Amazing Spider-Man movies. Direct quote here. She said, "You can't fit 10 pounds of shit into a 5-pound bag." And yeah, I think that sums up the production on those Amazing Spider-Man movies. Thanks, Sally.
As well as the third Raimi film.
No, she wasn't talking about that, so it doesn't matter.
Anyway, I think that's it for Movie MMA round number one. Who do you guys think won? What was your favorite? Have you watched these films recently? Comment below. Let us know. Let us know on social media. I think this really works. This is the first trial run for us, so what other films do you want to see us battle it out? We think you're doing an Alien franchise ranking episode. What other films do you want to see us rank, battle it out? Comment, let us know on Facebook, Instagram. and in the YouTube comments.
We are not watching Amazing Spider-Man 2.
No.
I can't take that. I can't defend that film at all.
We could do Spider-Man 1 versus 2 with Homecoming coming up.
That's easy. Spider-Man
wins.
2. Yeah.
2 wins.
Done.
Easily. Do you want to defend one?
Done.
I'll defend one.
Oh, God.
Yeah. I'll defend one. I actually think I genuinely like one more.
I'd like to watch them again.
Yeah. Okay. I'll be the solo man this time. That must have been tough.
It's not easy. I'll be honest. It's not easy.
It's definitely not easy being on Amazing Spider-Man stand.
Yeah. All right. We'll catch you next time. Connor,
Goodbye.
Benny.
See ya.